All right, everybody, welcome to the Inner Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Enoch Fossum. I'm currently in my master's degree to become a licensed marriage and family therapist with an emphasis on addiction. And this is episode 20. And you may notice, if you're watching this on YouTube or on Spotify, I think they now have videos on Spotify, right? I'm doing video, baby. I did videos back in, oh heavens, it was a couple years ago. On the What About Therapy podcast with Austin, we were doing a couple of videos and put it up. We realized that doing videos wasn't really worth the time at the time. And so I'm just trying it again. So just, if the video's clunky, whatever, just forgive me. I'm doing my best and I'm trying things out. So we'll see how this goes. I may keep doing video, and I may not. It's just me. I don't have a team to edit all of this stuff for me, and so I may end up not. I'm just giving it a try. So kind of exciting. So yeah, feel free to watch on YouTube as well, too, if you want, and you can watch my wonderful face. So today we're talking about one of the greatest hoaxes. Hoax? We're talking about a big hoax. Okay? And we're talking about the fact that you're getting duped with pornography, which may come as a surprise and it may not. But before we do that, if you're new here, we do like to start off with a little reflection before we actually really get into the episode. Because the whole reason I have this podcast to begin with is to be used as a tool for you, right? If you're struggling with pornography, I want you to be able to take something away from each episode. And so we have this little meditation to reflect on the last time you may have had an urge to watch pornography and what you did and how you can actually go about it differently down the road. So if you don't want to do this, that's fine. Go ahead and skip a couple of minutes in the future. And that's when we're actually going to start the episode. But for those of you that actually do want to do the meditation, let's start. So take a deep breath. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. Try and relax as much as you can while you're driving. But take a deep breath. I don't want to blow into the mic. I have to remember that, you can be actually watching what I do now. Generally, I would do something like this. And so that's what I'm going to do. So think about the last time you had an urge to watch pornography. Whether it was this morning, last week, last month, whenever it was, think about that. And then I want you to try really hard to think about where that urge started. Did it start in your stomach, in your ears? Did your Peter tingle? That can happen, right? Probably one of the most common. We're all like Spider-Man in that way. So you had this urge. Where did it start? And then what did you do afterwards? Did you just kind of hop on that train of thought and ride with it, go with it? Or did you try and get off? Did you say, okay, whoa, wait a minute. I'm having an urge here, so what am I going to do? But then you still ended up PMOing. Remember, porn, masturbation, orgasm, PMO. We're just going to use that instead of saying it out every time. Makes it shorter. So what did you do? Now, the whole purpose of this reflection, this meditation, is to realize that a lot of the times when you do have an urge to watch pornography, you don't do anything. You just kind of go with it, which is probably, in your case, normal because you've been doing this for years, right? So it's just, at this point, your brain's like, oh, this is just what I'm going to do. So what we want to do is try and break that habit and retrain our brain. Our brain literally has to relearn everything, relearn to do specific things when we have an urge. Because right now, what we do when we have an urge is to just PMO, right? And that's what we're trying to avoid. So think about when you do have an urge. Okay, it could be right after this episode. It could be tomorrow. It could be next week. It could be in a couple months. What are you going to do when you do have an urge? We talk about doing simple things like standing up, going for a small walk, going to get a drink of water. Whatever you can do outside of watching pornography is going to be a win. Okay, so think of something small, and it can be as small as just focusing on your breath. See that? I do that so I can try and avoid the mic. But focus on your breath, take 10 deep breaths, and eventually over time, your brain's going to relearn and start doing a lot of these things automatically when you do have an urge. Okay, but it just takes practice. And so you're going to have to be patient with yourself. So I want you to write something down. What are you going to do next time you have an urge? And then when you have an urge, try and follow through with it. Do your very best. And remember, if you have your urge, you follow through with your goal, right? You focus on your breaths, and let's say even do more. You get up, you walk, you go get a drink, you do all of it. But then you still PMO, that's okay. That's a win, okay? We're still training our brain. We still have our training wheels on, so you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. We're not trying to avoid the PMO altogether right now. We're trying to create different habits, okay? So be patient with yourself and realize you're going to slip up, and that is okay. That's normal on the stage of recovery. If you listen to last week's episode where we talk about the 6 stages of recovery, remember it can take from 1 to 3 years, and that's just the median. It can take, up to 5 years. Everyone's timeline is different. So don't compare where you're at to where someone else is at who is struggling. Okay? And scene. Nice. That's the meditation. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the greatest hoax of our time and the fact you're getting duped. And billions of people are getting duped. Okay? So what we're going to talk about today is the Gypsy Moth, the story of a moth. First, we need to talk about a study that was done back in 2007 within 6 universities. Now, this is back in 2007, which is insane, because back in 2017, I did an episode on this, I believe, and I posted it on Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, go there, try and post daily content here. Mainly going to now be videos from from the episodes here, which is pretty cool. So back in 2017, Pornhub reported having 20.5 billion visits across the year or something like that. And then fast forward to February of 2024, Pornhub reported having 10.5 billion visits a month. And so it went from 20 billion a year to over, 120 billion a year? 120 billion visits per year. So keep in mind, this is back in 2007. So imagine the statistics now, which is pretty crazy. So anyway, study done in across 6 universities back in 2007 to look at the mainstreaming of pornography. So this study found that 87% of young men across these 6 universities sought out and viewed pornography, and at least within the past year, okay, within the year of 2007 or 2006, whenever. With 20% of those men viewing pornography daily, if not close to it. Okay? So keep that in mind, 87%. That's the number you want to remember. So back to the Gypsy Moths. Back in 1869, in the great place of Europe, okay, someone had the bright idea to import gypsy moths to help with the production of silk. So they brought these moths from Europe over into Massachusetts in 1869. So that's a great plan, except the moths, when they got there, decided, I don't want to help make silk. And so some of them ended up getting let go or escaping. Okay, and what we came to find is that these moths, they really like trees and all the different types of shrubbery here. And if they get onto this tree or they get onto the shrubbery, they devour these things. They just do a lot of destruction with all the foliage and the trees, all that fun stuff. And so everyone at the time was like, well, crap, we have these moths now from Europe who decided to skip their job producing silk and just went to go eat instead. I mean, they're in America, so heck yeah, our food's pretty dang good, even the trees, apparently. So, let's see. So fast forward a century, we came to find that these moths caused billions of dollars in damage. So enter science with a creative and slightly ironic solution. To stop the moths from reproducing, they found that using their own mating system against them works best. So here's what happened. So instead of blasting them with all these pesticides, researchers proposed using the pheromones to either lure the males into traps or confuse them into eternal bachelorhood. So this pheromone-based strategy turned out to be so effective that it became a go-to method for insect control worldwide nowadays. So in the battle against tree-munching invaders, love, or at least the illusion of it, became the ultimate weapon in taking care of these moths and a lot of other insects today. So there's an article published in 2000 about this specific event that I want you to consider here. So it says 90% of chemical insecticides. I don't know the difference between an insecticide and a pesticide. Is that different? I have no idea. Anyway, so 90% of chemical insecticides have been eliminated from commercial orchards in Australia thanks to the use of chemical sex attractants. As the pheromone permeates through the walls of the tubing, it's carried on air currents through the orchard. The male either becomes confused and doesn't know which direction to turn for the female, or he becomes desensitized to lower levels of pheromones naturally given out by the female and has no incentive to mate with her. The insects follow the pheromone trail into the trap. So they have these tubes, and they put the pheromone all through these tubes and into the air. So this poor dude, this gypsy moth, he can sense or smell this pheromone. He's like, oh, snap, like that's a lot. I'm going to go find that female, and we're going to mate. We're going to get it on, because this smells amazing. But this pheromone is everywhere in this orchard, and so he just wanders around in circles. Hence the eternal bachelorhood. He just goes forever. And what's interesting is once they do find an actual female, they don't even want to mate with this female, because the natural production of the female moths can't even compete with the levels of pheromone that's getting released through these tubes. And so the gypsy moth, the guy, his levels or his sensation is whatever you want to call it. His baseline for this pheromone is way higher than it actually should be. And so the natural levels that are released just aren't attractive anymore, so he doesn't even want to mate with the female once he does find one. Isn't that crazy? Which he'll just keep on going about in this orchard and be there forever, or until he gets lured into a little trap to end his poor life. So now, 90% of those moths were contained with the pheromone. See where we're going with this? Yeah, you do. So think of it this way. Just like male gypsy moths get duped by the fake pheromones, human males and even females today are getting thrown off course by a modern day trap, which is pornography. So instead of floating through the air like these pheromones for the moths, we have a visual pheromone that's beaming through our screen, which is pornography. And this is tricking men and women into thinking that they're responding to natural attraction, when what's the actual result is a whole lot of guys and girls getting stuck in a loop that dulls their real world romantic instincts and leaves them less interested in actual relationships. So essentially, young men and young women, particularly, there are older men, older women that do struggle, but particularly the younger men and younger women are finding pornography more exciting than the actual real deal of sex and relationships with actual human beings. So where love, commitment, and raising children actually come into play. So if you're a numbers person, remember, and I know you've connected the dots already, you genius, you. The stats of the gypsy moth are eerily close to the stats of that study done in 2007. with the across the universities. So just like 90% of the males fell for the fake pheromone trick, about 87% of men, particularly with this study, are engaging with pornography. And remember, that was back in 2007. 2007. And the rate of pornography has just skyrocketed from 2017 to now. And so it is way higher now, with actually more women coming into the picture struggling with pornography as well. And so it's only a matter of time until, I don't think the percentage of males and females will actually even out, but I do think the percentage of females will continue to go up and not get to that male height, I don't believe, but I mean, you never know. We'll see. Pheromones are a powerful thing, right? So we'll see with pornography. So I want you to think about this as you go throughout this week. How has this visual pheromone of pornography affected your life? And how does it affect your life? Is your baseline a lot higher than it is naturally for connection, for love, for sex, for communication, all those things? And the only thing that can actually scratch that itch, right, pun intended, is to go to pornography. And so just think this week, remember the goals that you set during the meditation. Think about what you can do when you do have an urge, when you do get a good scent of that strong pheromone. Instead of wandering around forever in this orchard or until you go into a trap and can never get out, what are you going to actually do to try and break this cycle of thinking, this cycle of behavior? That's really all it is. You just have to relearn these different skills. And that's what they are, at the end of the day, are skills. I hope you learned something new. And I really do hope you walk away with something that you can do. Nothing changes if nothing changes. I love that quote. It's super simple, kind of dumb, but I love it. A lot of people will just go through this cycle over and over again, where they PMO, they feel really bad, they commit to never doing it again, and then they just do it again. They PMO, right? You've been there. And you're just stuck in this cycle. So nothing changes if nothing changes. So start to break it with small and simple things like focusing on your breath or doing the smallest things like drinking water. Anything like that, okay, to try and replace that habit. And eventually you'll get there. Okay, you guys, thanks for joining. You're great. If you aren't following me on Instagram, I guess you can follow me on Facebook too. Either way, give me a follow there. I try and post daily content. If you did like this episode, please leave a rating and review. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment down below about something you may have learned or tag someone. Can you do that on YouTube? Anyway, send this to someone that you know that is struggling with pornography. I know you know someone. Odds are pretty high. And so if you found this episode helpful, send it out to those that you think could benefit. Okay, I'll talk to you guys next week. Peace out.